If you didn't already know, the SCP Foundation is a creative writing collection from thousands of authors. Each entry that you can find on the SCP Wiki is an anomalous item or creature that has odd properties or causes weird things to occur. So I figured, why not FNAFify it, you know? So today we're exploring what animatronics could be SCPs, and if they were, what would their anomalous properties be? Let's do it. And at 10, Radioactive Foxy. No, he's not an Imagine Dragons fan. Radioactive Foxy is one of the Wasteland themed skins added in the Wasteland event for FNAF AR Special Delivery. You can purchase his skin and lures from the shop. Radioactive Foxy looks almost identical to normal Foxy. The only difference is that now Foxy is neon green. And he's radioactive, okay? And his body is slightly translucent, making his endoskeleton fairly visible, also featuring a faint radioactive symbol on his belly. And a dual hook consisting of like a different design compared to that of Foxy's normal hook, but it has two hooks, okay? Because get it, he's radioactive, he's mutated. But this is exactly the kind of thing that the SCP Foundation would contain. I mean, just look at it. This isn't a normal thing, okay? And while it is radioactive, it's also a sentient animatronic robot looking like he just came straight out of Chernobyl, so yeah, the SCP Foundation would be all over this dude. He'd be contained, and depending on his aggression, probably classified as Keter, considering what we deal with in the game. But this guy, he just looks like trouble. He looks for trouble. Call him SCP-1987. I know it's already a thing, but just let me make a bite of 87 joke, okay? In at 9, VR Toy Freddy. VR Toy Freddy is a neon-themed skin for Toy Freddy released on May 7th, 2020. He's also the first skin for Toy Freddy in Special Delivery, and he's also the first of 3 skins from the Arcade Mayhem event. And honestly, these 3 animatronics as one SCP would still make sense, like SCP-1987A, B, and C. He appears to be similar to the nature of Toy Freddy Fazbear, almost sharing the exact same model with him, but this time he's wearing VR goggles. His appearance is a dark neon purple, which also applies to his hat, bow tie, buttons, and microphone. He's textured with a few like cyber style circuit lines, and he wears a virtual reality headset regularly. During encounters though, he is replaced by his attack mode variant named Livewire Toy Freddy, and in this form his purple color turns to a fiery orange. He's covered with several glowing yellow circuit web textures, and he no longer wears his headset and reveals his bright yellow green glowing eyes. This kind of theme remains present throughout the other 2 in this set as well, and I think that their anomalous property would come from like when specific things glitch. Like Freddy would come out when a VR game glitches, Chica would be in arcade machines, and then Bonnie would appear for like a critical system error, considering how their skin is system error Toy Bonnie. In at 8, Phantom Animatronics. The Phantom Animatronics are hallucination variants of the original animatronics who haunt Fazbear's Fright throughout the nights of FNAF 3. The Freddy Files book also points out how these hallucinations appear to be burnt, suggesting that they're warning you about what's coming. The Phantom Animatronics first appeared in FNAF 3 as side antagonists. Some of them returned in Ultimate Custom Night, but I guarantee they all came back in Help Wanted. They include but are not limited to the Puppet, Foxy, Chica, Balloon Boy. There are multiple Phantom Animatronics that could possibly be considered SCPs. I mean, like the Phantoms are already the scariest part of FNAF, so any one of them or even the group being considered an SCP that comes out whenever the oxygen level gets too low seems kind of reasonable. They would also probably cause the cameras to glitch out and audio to sound distorted, which is something that they also kind of did in the game. But this is definitely something worthy of SCP-1987. Yes, I'm going to keep calling it 1987, alright? And at 7, Plush Babies. The Plush Babies are a group of at least 3 plushies that make an appearance in both FNAF Help Wanted and its DLC The Curse of Dreadbear as antagonists. The Plush Babies' appearance seems to be based on the Circus Baby Funko plushie in our real world, and they are pale white skinned clown-like plushies with light blue eyes and orange hair and pigtails, because you know what, pigtails make everything scarier. They also have a red top to their stomach with an orange triangle on their belly. The orange triangle also has a small fan printed on it, because of course it does. Because why take one of the weirdest things in FNAF and shrink it? Because why not? They also have a red nose and a smile with their mouth connected to their red cheeks. One has a red outfit, one has blue, and one has yellow. And while they might have their own behavior, I mean, just look at this thing and tell me it couldn't be an SCP, okay? It's a plush animatronic, for God's sakes. Plus, there has been weirder stuff, at least in the context of like weird base objects, like a telephone or literally the egg that only lets you say egg when describing it. Like, come on. The Plush Babies and all their weirdness would absolutely be classified as an SCP. And at 6, the daycare attendant. do I even really need to explain this one? Especially if this thing was a human, okay? This would be 100% considered anomalous. The daycare attendant, otherwise known in-game as Sundrop or Moondrop, is a superstar daycare animatronic that appears in Security Breach as a recurring antagonist in its moon form. As Sun, the daycare attendant is upbeat and energetic, kinda like Funtime Freddy, or me when I've had a cup of Monster. He enjoys doing activities with children, I don't, such as putting on puppet shows and drinking Fizzy Faz. I like the Fizzy Faz. When Gregory knocks down the structures as a way to distract him, Sun panics and quickly rushes to clean them up. He's also very serious about keeping the lights on as a way to prevent himself from transforming into Moon. As Moon, the daycare attendant is malevolent and aggressive, who constantly chases Gregory once the lights are turned off and attempts to punish him for being a naughty boy, which is already a problem. Even though Moon still has a distaste for messes and is responsible for cleaning them up, just as his daytime counterpart is, but Moon does so to a more demented degree. The fact that they can change between the two, that it also changes his entire appearance when the lights go out, is definitely SCP material. The man who casts a shadow that grabs people, I think it's a man at least, the shadow that grabs people and he has to have lights on from all angles, or how Peanut needs to be watched constantly. Sun would need the lights to be on at all times to ensure that he didn't turn into Moon. They would have to have 14 backup generators. This is exactly the kind of thing that someone would write about in the SCP Wiki. Halfway through, and at number 5, Boulder Toy Bonnie. Boulder Toy Bonnie is a stone toy Bonnie released on November 19th, 2020. He was added as Toy Bonnie's second skin and the second member of the Haunted Forest event. Boulder Toy Bonnie is a completely gray toy Bonnie made up entirely of stone. His body shows severe damage as parts of him have crumbled off and various cracks show throughout his stomach and limbs. He also appears to be very covered in moss and vegetation as it's growing throughout him and actually inside some of the cracks in his body. And finally, his eye sockets are completely empty and he has a full set of upper teeth, unlike his normal counterpart. This isn't just the Five Nights at Freddy's version of Peanut, I don't know what is, okay? This is just Peanut but with a different paint job. This is Peanut with extra steps. For all I know, Boulder Bonnie could be reinforced with rebar, okay? Which seems to be what Peanut was reinforced with as well, from what I remember of the wiki, okay? Boulder Toy Bonnie is the SCP-173 of FNAF. In it for Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap, also referred to as the Anomaly by Tape Girl, is the main antagonist of FNAF Help Wanted. He is a digital virus who is confirmed to be William Afton that lies within the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience. While inside the Fazbear virtual experience, his main goal is to merge with the player in order to escape the digital world, that player being Vanny. Being a literal sentient code being, I think would absolutely draw the attention of the SCP Foundation, even if it wasn't an SCP. A consciousness that can take control over someone by assimilating them through a VR headset, such a load of that it doesn't even make sense in the FNAF universe, let alone in a world where the SCP Foundation exists and is aiming to contain anomalous things. A VR game possessed by a sentient code serial killer that wants to escape through someone? Yeah, that computer, the game, and the headset are all being confiscated and being brought back to Site A where they can contain it properly. Probably class it as Euclid, since it can't really do any physical harm unless it's used, and then they'd probably run some tests with Class D personnel to try to figure out what's really going on. They could have a chat with William and then just kill the Class D when they're done talking. And then hope that killing the Class D then puts William back in the game instead of just releasing him into the world. Okay, there could be a lot of valuable information learned this way. Maybe I could. No, Connor, stop, okay? You're already on multiple watch lists. You don't need to put yourself on any more. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Toxic Springtrap. Toxic Springtrap is the second skin in the Wasteland event from FNAF AR. He is also the first skin for Springtrap in the game, and I really wish he wasn't. Toxic Springtrap has a repulsive appearance, covered in pale tumor-like warts, tentacle-like veins, some moldy skin patches, and it's letting out gassy fumes, let's say. The infectious-looking traits, including his corpse, were all shaded with purple and indigo tints as a possible throwback to the iconic color of his human form's minigame appearance, purple guy. But I mean, along the same lines as Radioactive Foxy, since they do come from the same event, there is no way that the Foundation is letting this monstrosity out onto the streets, okay? He'd probably have the ability to turn people into creatures like him, be it instantly or slowly, or maybe just like a touch would be enough to kill. Like the kiss of death, but you're only 5 feet away from him and then boom, you're dead. And then boom, you're looking for this! 100% classed as a Keter object, and he'd hopefully be contained in a 1x1 by 7 foot glass tube so that I would never have to deal with Afton again, okay? Call this one SCP-1985. But ultimately, in at number 2, Nightmare. Nightmare is a cruel, twisted animatronic who is sadistic in nature. This is apparent in Ultimate Custom Night, where he informs the player of their death in a rather sadistic manner. He also appears to enjoy mocking his victims. Upon getting the chance to do so, he speaks using a deep, monstrous voice, befitting his name. The name also comes from the fact that these are dreamt up animatronics present in Crying Child's mind after being put into coma by overpowered Fredbear's jaw, and since Fredbear is the one who put Crying Child in the coma in the first place, it makes sense that the dark death omen version is called Nightmare. I mean, this is a representation of death after all, and I think that's what the SCP version of the character would be as well, an omen of death, a bringer of destruction. Anything caught in the shadow of this animatronic would instantly perish due to a crushed skull. This idea coming from the fact that you can see Nightmare's endoskeleton through his casing, making it seem like this endoskeleton is merely encased in shadow. So being in what would be the shadow of this creature, even if it isn't visible, could in my mind end up killing you via a crushed skull. Of course. Call this one SCP-1983. Get it? Cause the bite of 83, cause FNAF 4 takes place in 1983, damn it. And finally, in at number 1, Glamrock Endo. The Glamrock Endos are the endoskeletons engineered for Glamrock animatronics of Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex and appear in FNAF Security Breach as hostile enemies, appearing in various places all over the map, but most notably in Parts and Service. The Glamrock Endo is a very high-tech version of the original endoskeleton, being gray in color as usual, like the original Mark 1 and Mark 2, but these ones are seemingly much stronger, with broader shoulders and a seemingly more superhero-shaped body. Like when you're drawing the stick figure base for a superhero and you use that like inverted Dorito shape, yeah. These are also seemingly just for the male Glamrock animatronics, since if we're being real, Chica's thick, but she doesn't have massive shoulders like Monty or Freddy. Either way, the mechanic of these animatronics is that they move when the player isn't looking at them. Well, at least after being activated, but hello? That's literally already an SCP mechanic. Peanut, who I mentioned earlier, aka SCP-173, one of the most iconic of all time, like I knew about Peanut before I knew about SCPs, that's the exact way that Peanut acts, just with the exception of not needing activation. So yeah, Glamrock Endos are 100% SCP material. If anything, they already are SCPs. That's all the time we have for today, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been in Showermate Donovan Monroe, and I'll see you in another video. If you have more list ideas like this, let me know, because these are fun.